Hello everyone, this is Pastor Jason Mills, and I want to come at you with a short video to let you know where I stand on certain things. But as we well know, those of us who are keeping up with what's going on amongst our co-laborers in the kingdom, Brother Kirk Franklin, gospel star, gospel icon, music minister, pastor, was recorded using a lot of profanity towards his son, and it was really hard to see all the vitriol and anger and I guess for lack of a better word, the judgment on Kirk Franklin. And I've noticed this my entire life, but I'm really noticing that there's not a lot of grace for preachers. And I want to come on here and just briefly talk about that. So I just want to know where the grace is for preachers. Like, where is our grace when we slip and when we fall? Where is our grace when, we show our humanity? Where is our grace? Where's the love? Because every time it seems like when a preacher, a pastor, anybody in clergy, deacon, elder, chaplain, any clergyman, specifically men, make a mistake that goes public, the public tends to bury us. They tend to be so unforgiving, so they lack understanding. And I just always wondered where that came from. The Bible says clearly, judge not lest you be judged also. Judging is only reserved for someone who sits in a position higher than you. So when you go before a judge in a courtroom, the judge sits behind a desk that's elevated. Because that judge's character is higher than the person who's standing before them. And everyone else who's working in the courthouse, wherever they sit, is going to be underneath that judge, because that judge's character is the highest. Now, spiritually speaking, the only person who has the right to judge is God. He sits the highest. His character, his persona, just who he is as God, is better than us. It's above us. And anytime we judge any man, any woman, anybody, what we're saying is, I'm above you. I'm better than you. When Kirk Franklin was using that language, everyone who was calling for a cancellation of all of his music, discrediting his entire ministry, trying to disqualify him from the ministry, are all saying, Kirk, we're better than you. That's what everybody's saying. And it's not fair, in my estimation, because he's a human being. He said that in his apology, that I'm human and I make mistakes. But for some reason, those mistakes are unforgivable by the preacher. And I want to get on here to first off and say, at the ETC church, we don't make judgments like that. We don't judge people based on one mistake that we have evidence of. Even if we have evidence of several, we're not going to sit up here and disqualify you from coming to church and from being used by the Lord just because you're human. Now, it will be hard for us to, use somebody who's not making time for God but makes time for sin. Now, that's a whole nother matter to discuss, but for right now, we've got to have, I just want to say that we need to have a little bit more grace, more forgiveness, more understanding towards clergymen, because that slip up was it was a combination and a culmination of so many slip-ups he didn't get to have as a minister. As a clergy, you got to hide your humanity a lot of times, because when people see a pastor messing up, they don't want to follow him. They'll discredit his ministry. They will disqualify him from being utilized, or even disqualify his entire calling from God. And that's unfair given how many years of service he's given to the Lord and to the kingdom, to the world. And that's just him. We're not even talking about every last one of us. So I think it's unfair that we have all this vitriol and anger. And I mean, I feel that a lot of people were let down. Okay, then that's fair. You have a right to be let down by him. But for us to call for him to just stop, being a minister and to rid the world of his music, that's just not right. I mean, how would you feel if, when you made a mistake that everyone knew about, and I don't want to hear this stuff about, oh, well, I'm not a preacher, so I can do that. You're still somebody trying to go to heaven. You're still somebody trying to go to heaven. Regardless if you're a preacher or not, if you're a child of God, you need to have a character that displays somebody who wants to make it to heaven. And when you mess up, how would you like it if the whole world just said, you know what, you need to leave this whole Christian title out of your name off of one mistake, one slip up, one wreck, as one preacher in Atlanta calls it? You wouldn't like that. You would leave the church completely because it's like, oh, y'all judging me. They act like they so perfect over there. Well, y'all act like y'all so perfect when the preacher messes up. Okay? Preachers mess up. I mess up. Kirk Franklin messed up. Donnie McClurkin messed up. T.D. Jakes messes up. John Gray, Steve Furtick, Freddie Haynes, Ricky Rush, just to name a few. Miles Monroe has messed up. But that doesn't mean that we get to disqualify them and disqualify their ministries just because of one mistake, or two, or three. Now keep in mind, James 3:1 says that not all of you should be teachers of the law, because you shall be judged with greater strictness. But once again, if you're looking at the word judged in the right context, you'll realize that word judge is only reserved for one person, and that is the Lord. So no one has the right to judge anybody. Not the preacher, not elders, deacons, not the members. I don't care how long you've been in the church. I don't care if your family's been at the church forever. I don't care how old you are. You ain't got no right to judge nobody, because you will never be God. You will never be God. You got to start showing these preachers some grace. Okay? Show them the same grace you want them to show you. And yes, I know that people think that ministers probably have a certain arrogance about us, that we walk around like we're perfect. We don't. We don't, and I apologize should anybody have ever felt that from myself or anybody else. We ain't perfect. And we walk like we have grace. We don't walk like we're perfect. But I need people to understand, it's hard being a minister, having to minister to people who are telling you that you're no good. Now, you're called to serve them. You're called to love them. But these same people are looking at one mistake and they're just throwing out your entire ministry after all these years of service. That's heartbreaking for a man, any woman, anybody who's serving the Lord, for their entire ministry to be discredited because of one mistake that he has apologized for. And as far as the situation between him and his son, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what is going on in that family. All I know is that they need our prayers, okay? Mr. Carrington, Kirk, his wife, Carrington's mother, everybody needs our prayers, not our judgment, okay? So I made another video on my own personal page. You can go watch that should you want to. But for this page, for this congregation, I'm letting y'all know judging is not okay for anyone, towards anyone. I don't care if they're in clergy or not. One mistake does not disqualify you, because that's the type of God we serve. He knows he's dealing with a bunch of humans that he loved. That's why he came down to die for us. He came down to die for you for that same reason. One mistake is not enough to disqualify an entire man's ministry, an entire man's relationship with the Lord. It's not enough. It takes more than that to separate us from the love of God. And that goes for anybody watching this. I don't know what mistakes you've made in your life, but if you sincerely regret those mistakes, you can come back and rebound from that, because God has not disqualified you. It's going to take more than what you've done to disqualify you. While you are still living, while you are still alive and draw breath every day, while there's blood pumping through your veins and you're still alive, you still have time to get it right with God. Take that time to get it right with God now, okay? Because God is going to judge you accordingly. But God is going to be the only one judging you. When we die, we stand before him. We don't stand before me, anybody else. So please, y'all, show some grace. Show the same grace that you want people to show you when you get mad and you say some four little words that y'all know some of y'all done said before. Show Kirk Franklin, show any preacher, any pastor, any clergy, anybody who serves the Lord, and just regular church member. Show them the same grace you want them to show you, and the same understanding. You know, those of y'all who don't have children, or, you know, who make judgments about him as a father and stuff like that, stop, y'all. Stop. Nobody raises their kids the same way. Okay? And like I said, you don't know everything that's going on in that family. I don't care what the guy said. I don't care what, you know, Kirk, Carrington, anybody says. We don't know. We only know what they put out there. So keep that in mind, all right? Let's not make judgments. Let's just, you know, send up some prayers and send some love and forgiveness and grace their way, okay? For Kirk, for using the language, and for his son Carrington, for airing out a private conversation between him and his dad, okay? Let's show some grace to both of them. But I just wanted to come out there and said that. I know we just got done with the Voices series, and the voice of God was leading me to just go ahead and just make this statement and make it clear for everybody. We at the ETC Church do not have any room to judge nobody. All right? Let the church say amen. I love you all. See you again very soon.